start with the data types of Python
Hmm.
language.
Okay.
See, first the first of all there is a type built-in function, right, with the help of which we can anytime get to know the type of data that we are dealing with, right? So first is this integer type, right? So for example, if I am dealing with some data, so I created a new file I, with the name integer or data types, let's say, and it's going to be the Python file. So we have this, let's say, number 10, and after that if I would like to print, you know the value of x is place marker format function x. This will let me clear the terminal. Let me call this file called data types. So it just prints the value of x is basically 10. And as I was telling you that we have a type function, so if you pass x to type, it prints that it is a class integer type data. So we will use this function to get to know the type of data that we are dealing with. If it is decimal, then it is float. You see it is float now, right? If it is in single quotes, double quotes, it is a string type data.
So here there is we are not going to declare any data type like in float or in initials.
No, it is a dynamically typed language. The data changes from one type to another type. So if I say starting with 10, you know, I change to string, it changes back. I mean, it's a so you are right. We don't declare a type of data first. Based on the value, Python interpreter gets to know what is the type of data that you want to deal with. I mean, right? So if I say it's a Boolean value, the type of data will be bool now, bool, right? So integer, float, string, bool, and there is a special none type also, none, which is it is, let's say, it the none type is that, you know first of all, that it is not a data that we are dealing with. I mean, it is the value is not known to us,
So
right?
is it kind of null? You can
Yeah,
say.
yes, it's
Okay.
kind of null only. So, it's a scripting language like JavaScript or TypeScript. All these languages are dynamically typed languages, and there even null pointers don't come, right? Either the script dies, or you know if there is a compilation error, if there is a runtime error, the script dies, just stop executing. But these none type, you know uh, I'm expecting undefined will also come, which simply means, as you rightly said, when the value of a particular variable is not known to us, right? So integer, you know uh, float, string, boolean or bool, or this none type. These are the five data types, and of course you have the type function. Remember this function, we will use this function in the later classes also, right? So once we are familiar with data types, so let's talk about individual types now. Let's start with a string, the common one, right? So here string data can come in single quotes, can come in double quotes, or it could be triple quotes also. you know Data could be in triple quotes also. string data. And we will talk about a function, let's say, the capitalized function, or I will also talk about positional arguments. So I was saying, let's say here, if I put the data in single quotes, and if I say it is a value 7, you know, it will simply print me the value of x is 7 and the class is string, right? And when I was saying triple quote, multi-line triple quote, right? This is triple quote. So there is no difference. I mean, now multi-lines will come. For multi-line characters, you will see triple quote thing, right? If your statement has got multi-lines in Java, you kind of fix a particular string with multiple lines. In HTML, you have got paragraphs. In every language, there is a way for to adopt a multi-line structure. Here in Python, it is these three triple quotes, right?
Mm.
So this is how multi-line string, and if instead of single triple quote you have this double triple quote, that will also work. So if I put one empty line below also, now this is the entire text, right? So this is the entire text, right? Now let me come back to that single quote or double quote or triple quote. Let's say simple, I have this 5 data within a string in a variable, right? Now if I call a capitalized function on this, I simply call a function directly on the variable itself, since I told you in the beginning that everything is an object in Python. So we don't wait for objects to be created to call the function. If I simply call capitalize over here, it will make a first letter capital. Or if I would like to, if I copy this, and here if I say all small, or let's say if all are capital, and I would like to put them in a lower case, I simply call a lower function, and it will print 5 in a exact lower case. But here the point is, we don't call these functions once object is created, and on objects we call the functions. No, in on the data, I'll show you in constructor, in other functions, getter setter functions, we don't wait for objects to be created to call our functions. Whenever we need the requirement of this being done, we simply implement the same. As simple as that, right? Similarly, you have a upper function also. We'll talk about more functions also. For example, this puts in a uppercase. Now if I put the data in, let's say, and I call the upper function on the same, it will put the data in uppercase. So if I run this, it simply puts the data in uppercase. Similarly, when we are talking about organizing the data based on our need, there is a concept of positional arguments also. Meaning, let's say in this 4, I want to adjust 5 and 6 also. So here I said next is 5 and the another one is 6, and on that I simply called the format function, and I passed 5 comma 6 to it. Now output will be 4 5 6, or let's say 4 5, instead of 6 you have 8. Now when you run this, it says 4 5 8. My only point to you is how you can position the argument at any particular index within a string. Again, like we put the data in uppercase, lowercase, capitalization. This is also very easy. I mean, right? So we don't wait for object to be created. Similarly, if you want 8 to be written first and 5 to be written later, you can mention one index first, zero index later. It will print 8 first and it will print 8 first. Oh, yeah, it will print 8 first and 5 later, right? So we are positioning the argument within a string which we want to use later on in the Python script. That is the only objective. Then you said I would like to put two zeros on the right hand side of 8 and two zeros on the left hand side of 5, or any particular character or spaces, anything you can do to format the string based on your need. So here I simply said move two steps on the right, and here I said move two steps on the left, right, using less than and greater than sign, right. So when I run this, it has moved two steps ahead, and it has moved, given a two steps, I mean, on the left hand side, right. I could have added more spaces also. But instead of spaces, if I would just want to concatenate 0, let's say over here, so I will simply say 0 2 and 0 2. This will, you know, actually it has taken that particular string also into consideration. So if I want 2, it will give like this. So here, we don't need those functions like substring, index of, to replace all these append, replacement, all those functions. We can format the string, you know, if we require in this particular fashion. We simply need to learn it, uh, you know, how to create string that ways using these positional arguments. All this, since all this we have seen as part of this very scenario, it is called as how to position your arguments based on your requirements. These are positional arguments basically. Now I could have also said that 8 spaces on the right and 8 zeros on the left, 8 zeros on the right and 8 zeros on the left, right. If I put, let's say, you know a thing, it does not take a particular a, but if I say instead of 0, give me 9, will it take, you know 8, 8 9? So zeros, it takes, but if I mention percentages, it does not take. So I will tell you about that also, how to append other particular. From a C language point of view, it is easy to format 0, right. You can take this as an exercise. I will help you on same how to put any other data, you know as part of this particular input string, right. Otherwise, if you could not able to figure it out, just let me know, right.
Yeah, sure.
So, this way we have done that. Now let's say I want this data to be in double quotes. So within single quote, I could have said first is 8, 8, 9 zeros on the right hand side. Similarly, 5, 9 zeros on the left hand side. When you run this, now it is putting the data within double quotes also. So no escape character is required, right? So no escape character is required. So these are positional arguments, right? Now you could have said that
Okay.
8 and 9, 5 and 8 we don't want to send like this. So I said what you can have A and B. So A is let's say 3, B is let's say 7. So here I said on the first index you have A and then on the second index you have B. So that means 7, 8 zeros on the right and B is 3, 8 zeros on the left. So that way also you can format the string,
Yeah, yeah.
right? This way also we put double quote, single quote, triple quote, right? So kind of we have seen capitalized function, uppercase, lowercase and positional arguments based on indexing, how to append zero and double quotes, and even if data is coming via parameter, that is also fine, right? And we will have one exercise to put any random other digit instead of zero, that also we'll see. So that was with string. Similarly you have a same thing with integer also, you know since we have started that particular concept of you know since we have started that particular concept of formatting or calling the functions directly on the data types, whether it is integer or float, right? So Python 3 has integer and float as two different types. If you ever got a chance to see Python 2 interpreter, there one integer type meant for everything, for integer and long both, for float also, right? So now my point is that if I say 7 multiplied by 2, that is a number, and after that we would like to print using f string type the value of x is. So within place marker I simply mention x, right? And after that I can also print a type of x, which will tell me the class of x. So it simply prints me, the name of a Python file is integer now. So it says the value of x is 14 and class is integer basically, right? And if it is double, if I put a dot sign into it, right, decimal into it, the class becomes float and the output comes in double. So in double you don't need a proper, let's say, pi value, right? Even a single zero digit double will also make a data in integer, and based on your needs you can call that. Now there is this divide sign which will give you a quotient. So when you divide a 7 by 3, the quotient is 2, right? But if I'm only interested in a quotient, we have this special operator called double divide, or floor divide. Now the output will be 2. But if I use one single divide, the output will be 2.33333, and the output is in float. So here you have a special character called double divide. And if you are only interested in remainder, you have this modulo sign or a percentage sign. Now you will only get a remainder back, 1, which is a remainder. 7 divided by 3, remainder is 1. So if you are see Python used in a retail based application, if I tell you 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 minus 4.4, if you think output will be 0, no, that is not going to happen. So if I say the value of x is, place marker on that, you call the format function, and after printing you print the type of x, output will not be 0 this time, you know but for 3.
Hello.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. Audible.
So you see the output is not 0. So in that case, with when we are dealing with decimals, from anywhere you can load a library. From decimal you said I would like to import every class file. So you can use this class called decimal starting with capital D, and this decimal library starting with capital small d basically. So here you simply said this is the input value for A, and then you said this is the input value for B, right? Now when you do the same thing by mentioning A plus A minus B, and you could have given, so now the output will be 0. So they say with when you are dealing with decimals you should, I mean, include this library. I imported this library, and from that library I use this class. So the library name or module name starts with small d, and capital D is a class name, decimal. So with numbers we saw double divide, single divide. Double divide is also known as floor divide, and modulo operator, percentage, decimal, like integer, float. And we also get to know about how to load a library which comes with Python interpreter itself, right? And use a particular class and do a mathematical operation, right? So first we saw the types of data types, integer, float, boolean, string, and none type. Then we saw a few functions: lower, capitalize, upper, positional argument, appending a data. And then we saw few functions on integer, right? Similar to that, few functions can be called on boolean type also. So when I will tell you about while loop in detail and for loop in detail, right, there I will use these boolean expressions. So the output will be true or false. So this boolean type data in Python will scripting will be used. But in a basic of the basic sense, if I make this value of x to be true or false with capital T or capital F, now you will see the type will be boolean, right? So this is the basic thing. But if I say 8 greater than 5, meaning output will be true. So it is a boolean value, 8 greater than 5. Similarly, if I say 8 less than 5, output will be false, but a boolean output, which we can use as part of, which we will use as part of, I mean, while loop, for loop, other Python based concepts that we will talk about. And since at the same time I was also telling you about the none type, you know, which has got only one possible value, which is basically means the absence of value. So when you don't know the value, so you can initialize the variable as none type. So when you print this, you will get none type, right? But after none type, if I want to use true, you know, here using boolean expression we are executing if, and you can have else also. So you simply said which will not execute, you know, false. This our interpreter knows it is not going to execute. But if I say x over right now, this will print using boolean if prints. But if I simply would have mentioned x, then it would have printed false. And here I could write that this false is getting printed because x is none. because this x is none, right? Since x is none, so again forget about none. If it is a empty double quote, then also the output will be false. So again now it will print, x is empty. So it will print x is none or x is empty, right?
Mhm.
Now but the moment I give a value to x, let's say 1, now it will print using boolean if. So we saw with none or with empty, this else block works. That is why I said I will use boolean values a lot in while or for. Similarly, if I say here that x is, let's say, within double quotes you have a value, now also if statement will work. I could print the value, within x using a f string type, and it will print value a has come, right? So this is a boolean type. We saw integer type, we saw float type, and then with none type, or the string type. Then comes the sequence types. So Python has got, this was easy. So Python has got built-in sequence types. You know, for example, list is there. I will tell you everything about list. Tuple is there. That is also a data type, but they don't call it as a data type. They call it as a sequence type, right? Dictionaries is there. So these are built-in sequence type, and of course we will also talk about set. These are four built-in sequence type, but set actually comes as part of a data structure, which we will talk next. So right, so now you tell me, shall I start with sequence type right now, or shall we talk about sequence type in the next class?
We can start because we have, I think, some more time, right? 10, 20
Right.
minutes more we can. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So
Are you fine? Like, you have some work?
no, no, we can talk about that also. I mean, I'm fine with that. So
Okay. Okay.
so here comes the sequence types, and it is a Python file, right? So I was talking about list. So whatever you see within square bracket, that is a list, right? This is not a array, this is a list in which a duplicate can come. But to access this list, you have this for loop, and you simply printed that the value of I is using figure bracket. You simply call the format function and you pass the value of I. It will print. Oh, it's called the wrong file. It is sequence types. So it prints me 342, 383, 2. And if let's say I put, then the duplicate, the empty value is not known. If it is 0, then of course 0 will be printed. But my point is, this for loop is sequencing through the list, through each and item in the list. We assigned a value to I in each and every element in the list. Now list is a mutable data structure or mutable data type, meaning I could replace, let's say, an element at the first index with a value 40. Mutability means you can change the original structure. That is very much
Mm.
possible in Python. I mean, there is tuple, which is a immutable structure, but here you see I changed the value at a first index. Indexing always starts from the zeroth value, zeroth index, zeroth position. But this is how we replace the value. This is how mutability concept works. So that means when you are interested in changing the original structure, you will go ahead with the list data structure. That is a mutable data structure, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So this is list. The another one that I was talking about was tuple. Tuple is recognized or identified by this round bracket or parenthesis. The moment you put the data in round bracket, it becomes a tuple and it becomes immutable. That means you can't change the original structure. If you try to change the original structure now, you will get a compilation error. It simply says tuple object does not support item assignment. So tuple is a immutable data structure identified by round brackets. List is a mutable data structure identified by square bracket. And whenever you try to change the tuple, you will get a compilation error. That means you should not change. That means you should take this data structure into consideration only when you are not concerned about the original value. You choose tuple when you are concerned, you don't want to update. You choose list when you want to update, you are not concerned about the original data structure. Right? Before talking
Yeah,
about
got it.
dictionary, you have got a iterable in Python also. So range value 10, starting from 0 till 10. Range is a predefined inbuilt function in Python, right? So here also I simply said give me all the values in a range. It will be a, so I have to comment out this tuple part, otherwise it will not allow me to move ahead, right? So now it printed me from 0 to 9 because of this range function, right? First we printed all the values in tuple using this, but when if I comment out everything just to understand range function which we will use. So via range you don't want to use updations as part of a basic for loop. Range is will be used as part of a for loop also, but wherever iterables are required with any data structure, range is the very first option to use. I will show you that how we can achieve a different set of values. It will always start with 0, goes till 1 last, minus 1 last, and the last item minus 1 basically. But you can have more parameters passed to range function. Meaning, if instead of 0 to 9, I am interested from 5 to 9. So this is a starting index and this is the end index. Start and the end value. Now when I run this, it prints me 5 to 9. Right? So this is a range function with two parameters, start value, end value. You can have a third parameter also. Third parameter is called as a step by value. Meaning you are saying let's start from, let's say, 5. Instead of 10, let's go till 50, and step value is, let's say, 6. So 5, 11, 17, 23, things like this will be printed. So step value can also be there. You can see how iteration can be achieved. So here iterator is not required, entry set is not required. Here as part of for loop updation is not required. It is easy to use range as part of list and set also, dictionary also, which we'll talk about. So again, their objective is to do things easily. If you remember, complex is better than complicated. Things should be.
Mm-hmm.
So they said using range you should be able to iterate it. You give a start, step, or a start, stop, and a step by value, and you can use it. And the best part is this range function is also mutable, meaning at the second index, let's say I would like to put a 45th value. Like list, range also does not support. Sorry, range is a immutable function. I'm sorry. Range is a
It's a
immutable.
function.
Yeah, you can't update
Mhm.
range. You can only update list or dictionary. Tuple and range can't be updated. Have I mentioned this correctly? You know. But what if I want to have a mutable list? That is also possible. Let me convert range into list. Then we should be able to update the data because list is mutable, so now it will work. Yeah, so it is good that we saw error.
Mhm.
Now when you see element at this second index becomes 45 because we converted range to list data structure. Why? For a mutable scenarios, for mutable features characteristic, right? So list sequence type, tuple sequence type, list is mutable, tuple is immutable, range is immutable but can be converted to list. Iteration, start, stop, step by value. As far as sequence type is concerned, there is one more sequence type called dictionary, which is key value pair like map in Java. So here you said dictionary is identified by this braces figure bracket. So key could be string, value could be string, or value could be number. Key could be string, value could be. So here I said first key is 1, second key is this, you know. There are, let's say, three key value pair combination in this variable called x, and we would like to go into each and every key value pair combination. This is a dictionary. So you should be able to identify list like this. You should be able to identify, you know, you should be able to identify tuple like this. You should be able to identify list like this, and you should be able to identify dictionary like this. So now you said you would like to go into um, each and every key value pair combination. So now I is not, you are interested in key value. So you want to print a key and a value. So again, key is first place marker and value is, second place marker, and on that you can call a format function and you can pass key k and v which you have used first as part of a for loop. So now when you run this, did I save the file sequence type and are we executing correct file? So it says key is 1, value
Mhm.
is this, right?
Yeah, that items is predefined method calling something. X
Item,
dot.
yeah, these are predefined functions. These are predefined functions.
Okay.
Functions because they're followed by right round brackets or parentheses. But as I was
Mm-hmm.
telling
Yeah.
you, dictionary is mutable. So here I said I should be aware about a key. So let's say key is 3 and this particular key data is going to be updated with a value called 45. So when we update this, you see value of key is updated from 3 to 45, right? These are updated from 3 to 45.
Mm.
So basically you have five data types, you know integer, float, string, boolean, and none. You have three sequence type with the range function: list, tuple, of course range, and dictionary. Range is a simple function, right? Dictionaries or dictionary, right? And list and dictionary are mutable, tuple and range are immutable. See, then
Oh.
this entire scenario will finish with the help of id function. We have learnt about the type function, and there is one more function which is instance, right? Which will help us, let's say we want to first check which data type we are dealing with, things like that. So these three functions will finish this scenario, right? So,
Mm,
right. So, once we are aware about these sequence types, then we would like to learn about the id function, which will help us know the uniqueness of our object. Like, it helps us know the unique equals helps us know the uniqueness of our object in Java language,
mm,
right? So here, let's say I have a tuple, with all types of data. First of all, as I told you, it's a dynamically typed language. So 1 is there, 2 is there, 3 float is there, 4 a list, you know, with 2 elements is there, and of course fifth could be a number. So all this is possible as part of a tuple. Print f string type x is, this x, and we can print the type also of this particular x. It will simply print us, x is this and it is a tuple,
mm.
right? So now type we are already aware of, that we have already seen. But if let's say I am interested in type of this 2, so what will I do? I will pass index 1, right? So it will simply say, tuple is not callable, right? Or it should have been in, indexes are always given in square bracket. So if I say square bracket, it says it is a string. Similarly, if I
String.
say, yeah, zeroth index, similarly if I say the second index, so first is integer, second is string, third is float, right? So it gives
Yeah.
us types. But actually this is x, and absolutely similar to that we have y also. And for object equality, you have got this function called id, right? So I pass this x and y to a id function to get to know the bucket number, the memory allocation address from a JVM standpoint. So it gives me two
Mm,
different types of object. So objects are different, but their data is same. That means if I check the id value of x at 0th index and id value of y at 0th index, that will come out to be same. So Python says data should be same. So now these objects are coming as same because their data, now we are comparing the data basically. You simply can't compare the object. Here we compare the data. And further, if we prove this, I could have also checked if element at the 0th index is element at the 0th index. If they are same, I could print via print function and I can say they are same. Else I could print that no, they are not, right?
mm,
Since we know that they are same, so it prints us yes, they are same,
oh,
right? So you have is operator also to check whether the data that you are talking about is same or not. But here, instead of indexes, if you would have simply checked whether x and y are same, then what will happen? Then it says no, they are not same. You simply can't compare the objects
mm,
like this in Python, right?
mm.
Now,
So
yeah,
can we compare the indexing values
yeah, you can
and we can
compare.
see, right? Mm,
Yeah, you can compare any indexing value and that will come out to be absolutely same.
mm.
Did I save this file?
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Now some programmers, what they do, they start checking the type of x, and they say it is a tuple. We know that. So will this work? If we start checking out, what does it print? It says it's a wrong way of checking the type of data. Then it says, you please tell us what is the right way. So the last function that you need to know as far as dealing with the type of data is this function called isInstance. So here I am saying, is the instance of x is tuple or list or dictionary or range. Now it will print me that yes, type of x is actually tuple. So this way you can compare the data before start dealing with the data. This actually should be the beginning point, but actually we need to learn the data types, the sequence type, the functions, the id, the type. After learning, this should be the starting point in your code, so that you don't end up with the wrong type of data,
Mm,
right? So here we checked whether x is a list, x is a tuple or not. So we checked that yes, x is tuple. I could have also checked via elif. you know I could have also checked if y is a list, and here it would have printed list. But we know that y is also a tuple, so elif will not work, only if will work, right? If I change this to a tuple, oh sorry, list, oh sorry, I am checking y is a list. So first, and I need to make this also as a list, then the other part will work,
okay.
right? So it prints me that this is a list this time. So via is instance you can check the type of a object, right? Via is instance
Mhm.
you can verify the type of a object, right?
Okay.
So these are the type of object that you would like to deal with, right? So this is the type of data: int, float, list, int, float, string,
Mm,
boolean, and then none type, and then list, tuple, range, dictionary, then type function, id function, and is instance function, right?
instance. Okay. Okay.
So we'll take the discussion forward in the next class, and we'll
Yeah.
talk
Yeah.
about a
Yeah. Yeah.
second.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.